Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Angela Drummond Matthews. Welcome to week 12 of Composition 1. This week we're starting on our last essay. This is an argument essay. I've provided you with several readings that will help you understand argument. As usual, I want you to do the readings and watch the videos and take Cornell notes. I also want you to do a quiz that will help measure what you learned from your readings and viewings. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about argument. In an argument, one person tries to convince another person of some idea. It's different from an informative essay in that the writer has to take a side instead of being unbiased. People try to convince people of things all the time, but they don't always use good argument. Sometimes they use emotion or manipulation. What we're going to learn is how to convince people using logic and reason. That doesn't mean that we don't use emotion at all, but we use it ethically. Our more important tools of persuasion are facts. When we organize our facts in a logical way, we can create a cogent or good argument. When we argue, we use two types of reasoning, deductive and inductive. And that reason can either be cogent, good, or fallacious, bad. Let's look at how these forms of reasoning work using the syllogism. A syllogism is an argument in its most basic form. The cogent syllogism has three basic rules according to Howard Kahane's Logic in Contemporary Rhetoric, the use of reason in everyday life. 1. It must have justified premises. A premise is like a statement of fact. It doesn't need to be proven because it's self-evident, or it has already been proven by another argument. 2. It must have all relevant information. For example, it's not enough to say that if it has feathers, 2 legs, and a beak, it's a duck. It could be any bird. That's not enough information to prove duck. And 3, it has to be valid, which means that the premises lead necessarily to the conclusion, or that accepting the premises warrants accepting the conclusion. For example, it isn't good enough to say, the sky is blue, Donald Trump is president, and so therefore everyone should eat cornflakes for breakfast. The premises are true, but they don't lead to that conclusion. It doesn't follow, so it's not valid. Let's look at a commonly used syllogism. We'll start with the justified premise, Socrates is a human. How can we justify that? Well, while it's probably self-evident, if necessary, we could do a DNA test. Premise 2, all humans are mortal. Is that a justified premise? Yes, there hasn't been any human born who was not subject to death. Conclusion. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. The syllogism is valid because the premises lead necessarily to this conclusion. Furthermore, this is deductive reasoning. In deductive reasoning, if the premises are true, the conclusion cannot be false. Unfortunately, most of the reasoning we have to do in real life cannot be deductive. We don't always have everything we need to prove the arguments we want to make. So we have to use inductive reasoning instead. In inductive reasoning, if the premises are true, the conclusion is probably true. That's because we might be missing some information like what will happen in the future. So we're basing our information on patterns or examples that we've seen. This is the kind of reasoning that we do every day, and it's also the kind of reasoning that's done in science. Scientists do experiments to build up a preponderance of evidence about a subject. If a pattern can be established, they can tell that the conclusion they reach is probably true. Let's look at an example from philosophyterms.com. Premise 1. Ben has visited 4 places today. Premise 2. Sam has gone to those places soon after. Conclusion, therefore, Sam is probably following Ben. Is that necessarily true? No, but it is probably true. Inductive reasoning allows us to look at patterns in the world and create general conclusions from them. In science, once those general conclusions are found, scientists can look for deductive proofs to solidify their claims. What does this have to do with your writing? Well, I've always believed that the key to good writing is the ability to make good sense. If you can think critically, use logical reasoning, and avoid bad reasoning or fallacies, then you have a better chance of communicating clearly. When you write your essay, you'll use the classical format. Let's talk about classical argument. A classical argument is a basic structure that allows a writer to create an organized and easy to understand argument that will convince a reader of a position. It uses logical reasoning to give reasons, examples, and evidence to support a position. It starts with an introduction, as in all essays. Next is the narration, in which you explain the background information necessary to your argument. Sometimes this is combined with the introduction. In the next section, you make your claim or proposition and back it up with your proofs and evidence in your confirmation. Next, you examine opposing arguments in your refutation. Give some concessions to show that you understand where your opposition is coming from, but then refute the opposition by explaining the contexts and conditions that make your position valid. Finally, write a conclusion that doesn't just rehash the bulk of the essay, but one that moves readers to act or to consider the future or to continue the conversation or to study the topic on their own. I'll be looking for those elements in your essays, so please be sure to study the argument form and to follow it when making your outline. That's all for now. I hope everything was clear. Do your reading and email me if you have any questions at all. I hope to see you in the optional class discussion on Friday. Check Blackboard for times. Work hard and stay safe. Bye-bye.